So what made you decide to get out and then go contracting? Why was there no did you have no want to stay in?
I mean, I was pretty bummed out after the 2 years of being activated. So I ended up getting out, and I was still doing my 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year type thing.
Hmm.
And then um, I just, it almost just landed in my lap. So what we had was a bunch of like Force Recon Marines that got out of the Marines. They joined the Air National Guard for college money, and they got activated. And you want to talk about some pissed off people.
I bet.
They were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm stuck doing this." And then when we went into Iraq during the ground offensive, one of the guys that went with me, he was a former recon Marine. So, like, we did the ground offensive gig, full mop gear. That's the other thing that I realized when I talked to veterans. Like, if you got after OIF one, like you weren't in mop gear all the time.
Oh
Whereas
yeah.
if you were during the ground push, you were like sitting there just sweating your ass off in those charcoal suits.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, I'm going to go work for Blackwater. And it was right after the guys got hanged on the bridge in Fallujah.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, good luck, man. Like, I want zero part of that. He went to Moyock, North Carolina, where the training base was. And they were like, hey, we need more people for this new contract that's coming up. So if you guys have any buddies, like, give us their numbers and their names and we'll give them a call. So I just got like a random call on a Monday that
Hmm.
was like, hey, I'm with Blackwater. Do you want to come over here and work for us and go through training? It's 2 weeks. And, 5 minutes later, all I heard was myself saying, like, yeah, sure, send me the stuff. And I was on a plane within 2 weeks over to Moyock, North Carolina.
That's crazy, dude. I thought so. My understanding was that Blackwater was only taking guys that were like recon guys or SEALs or like former operator dudes. I
Yeah.
didn't how so how did were they not doing that at this time? Was there not a prerequisite or anything like that? Can you kind of talk us through like what
Yeah.
the recruiting process was and maybe how it morphed over time?
Yeah, so I mean, it did start off as like you had to be the operator dude, and then it was a good old boys club, right? So you had somebody come in, they vouch for you, they put their name on the line for you, and then they'd be like, "Hey, I'll give this guy a shot."
Hmm.
So I mean, that's really how I got in. It wasn't because I was like this bamf running around, slaughtering the Hodge. I was literally just a dude getting, taking college classes over the summer, and they were like, if you got a guy that you could vouch for, like, we'll take them, we'll bring them in, and if they can pass everything, then we'll send them overseas. So it was really, I mean, it's like a PT test: shoot, move, and communicate. Like, you go to the range, and then you go do your CQB, and then you do your little like walk in the diamond when you have your principal in the middle, and
Hmm.
you got all your avenues of approach covered. And they really just, like, once you went through that process, they just needed bodies so bad because the contract was so big. And so, to give you kind of a little bit of an idea, what happened was Blackwater had the Brimmer detail, and those were all like legit dudes, right? There was like Frank Gallagher, he wrote a book on it called The Brimmer Detail. They went over there, they protected Brimmer. Brimmer handed over the country essentially to the government of Iraq, the interim
Hmm.
government of Iraq. So it went from a DoD mission to a Department of State mission.
Yeah.
So the Department of State said, "Holy cow, we got to get all of our diplomats over there, and we got to start helping them rebuild this country from like a civilian side, but we don't have anybody that'll actually protect these diplomats." So that in '04 is when the contract really kind of exploded, and they were like, "Look, if you can vouch for a dude and they can come in and they can pass it, then bring him on in."
When you got there, were you being assessed or were you being trained to go do the job that you were doing?
So the first week was mostly like assessment, right?
Okay.
It's like you're gonna go do your M4, best ranges I've ever been in my entire life, right? So you do your
Yeah.
M4 qual. They give you two chances, they boot you. Then you go do your pistol qual. We had like the 9 mil Glocks, and you got two chances of that, they booted you. And then it was like 249, 240 Bravo, AK, shotgun, all these other like kind of, like in the military where it's like, yeah, you qualify on that, but it's really kind of hard to gauge
Hmm.
whether how good you really are on it.
Yeah.
And then from there, we moved into getting your security clearance. This is where it got really, really tough, is because anybody that's sitting there and saying, I'm going to volunteer to go over there, do this dangerous job, where these four dudes literally just got hanged off a bridge,
Yeah.
they probably haven't made a whole lot of great life decisions up to that point either, right? So what we saw was there were so many people that just couldn't get their clearance, whether they had like outstanding credit card debt, student loans, couldn't figure out where they were in the past. I mean, the people that got their security clearance were guys like me, 23 years old, all-American boy, like go in and like I didn't really have a whole lot of life experience to get myself in trouble. So
Yeah.
they would just come in and say, all right, they'd point at somebody and be like, you'd never see him again. And you couldn't figure out why or what. And then the second week was really going through the process of like training you to walk the diamond and this is how like a diplomat's going to move. And this is where you stand around the diplomat. And here's how you get into a vehicle. Here's how you get out of the vehicle, ingress, egress. I mean, so it was, I mean, I've heard now that it's up to like 3 months long. Back then it was like a 2-week wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Get
on the plane, get over there and start working.
Exactly.
That's crazy, man, because guys like you that don't have that like shooter kind of background, like you were in the military, weapons handling is something you've done, but probably, to what extent? Now you're going into like really shitty places and taking VIPs around and are supposed to secure them. Yeah, I would think the training would be way longer than like 2 weeks. When you say that you get 2 tries and you're booted, like what was like the M4 qualification? Like, was it a hard qualification or is it one that like almost anybody could walk in and do?
Well, so you also have to put yourself kind of back in 2004 where I think we only had like 15 to 20,000 troops in Afghanistan. Nobody had combat experience. So you had all these guys from like, 2001 and they got in somewhere in the 80s and they didn't get their combat on and they hadn't touched a rifle in God knows how long. And like I was like fresh off the farm, right? I had just gotten done with Iraq and I was always doing weapons quals like every 6 months. So it was really easy. 300, 250, 200. 150, 50, and then and then they count the bullet holes, right? Like it's not that difficult, but so many people were like, "Oh, my weapon's off, and I didn't zero it right." And then one of the instructors would hop down behind their weapon, stick a couple of rounds in there, and be like, "Nope, it's shooting fine, dude. You're out, gone."
Yeah, can't have you. That's a liability for sure if you can't even shoot. You're right though. You're right. I didn't consider that. Like the time frame there is no combat experience at that time. Maybe some guys from the Gulf War or Bosnia or something like that. But yeah, you're right. That's pretty early on, huh? Yeah, I don't know, man. It just to go be a contractor. What was going through your mind like when you like actually pulled the trigger and you signed over and were like, all right, let's do this. Like this is for real. Like did you know what you're getting yourself into? Because you just come back from Iraq, different mission, different kind of circumstances, but did you kind of understand what you were getting into?
I mean, in my head, I thought I did. I didn't really know what I was getting into realistically, but in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to protect diplomats. And I think the best thing I did is I got to Moyock, North Carolina, and there's like these Rangers and SEALs and SF and you name it. And I was the Air Force guy, and I just shut my mouth. Like a lot of people go in there and they start running their mouths about how awesome they were.
Yeah.
Not me. I was like, dude, I'm walking among giants. Like I could learn something from the janitor in Moyock, right? So I just shut up. And then after a while, people were like, oh, I remember at the pistol range, a recon Marine looks over at me and goes, Jesus Christ, you can shoot. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, I guess. Yeah. So in my head, like I thought I knew what I was getting into. And then you land in Baghdad and it's just completely different than everything that they told you it was going to be. Every expectation you had just flew right out the window in 120 degree massive heat and biop.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the actual like logistics of this then. Did you have your own weapons or were you given weapons? Or was that something you had to purchase on your own? Like how did that work? And what weapons were you, like what was your basic loadout that you would carry?
Yeah, so they gave us just, a regular